18 years on this idea of a semi-intelligent monkey that can push buttons and do some sort of evaluation of the result. And okay, that's fine. You need a way of interacting with the graphical user interface, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. We need to not be fixated on that. We need to really think about, how do we do better work, not just faster work, and let's not let the tool determine what we test anymore. There's too much of that. Give the child the hammer and the whole world is a nail stuff. There is a wage race to the bottom going on, and from the individual worker's perspective, that is certainly what outsourcing, international globalization is a wage race to the bottom. Capitalism is a method of maximizing the return on assets and costs, and one way to do that is to drive down the costs. There's a Darwinian element to this for the individual contributor and test manager alike, of make sure that you're going to evolve your skills faster than anybody else at your pay grade, if you will, because this is you're going to end up out of the business, to be blunt about it. And I do know a lot of testers who have left the software industry entirely because they decided that they just couldn't keep up with the skills growth treadmill that they had to be on. So make sure that you do stay up. Think of Alan Greenspan's recent comments about how, if you're out of the job market for more than, I think he said 18 months or something like that, it becomes a real problem, because the skills growth is something that you can almost never catch up on. And even if you're in the field, if you're not attending to this issue of your skills growth, then you're falling behind. Joseph Schumpeter, economist, talking about capitalism, describing it as creative destruction, and that certainly is an apt way of putting it. Creative destruction meaning that those things which are less efficient, that do a less good job of extracting a return on assets and costs and investments, get ground down and replaced by something else that is created that does a better job. And really, this is why you got to look at your test processes, have these metrics for effectiveness and efficiency, and make sure that you stop doing things that don't make sense according to those metrics, and you start doing things that will optimize those. So the next 10 years, I've laid out a lot of challenges. I think it's fair to say that it's going to be as always, the wise test professional, the wise test manager will have a lot to look out for, a lot to think about. Those who consider this to be a trivial undertaking, testing and managing testing, I think will probably find themselves doing other things by the end of the next 10 years. So that concludes the presentation. Now, at this point, I'm going to answer questions from the audience. I will put the advertisement up while I do that, and submit your questions via the webinar interface as a questions box that you can use to do that. I'm going to start with questions via email to start us off as you guys continue to submit questions. So one question from email: connecting to business value makes sense, but how can I do that? So this is a good question. Testing. You think of testing. Testing offers both a qualitative value and a quantitative value. So the qualitative or subjective value will include things like building confidence, providing information. The quantitative or objective value will include things like saving money on avoided field failures, bugs are found and fixed before release, or reducing tech support effort by gathering workarounds and other information for deferred bugs, and just overall reducing risk. You can measure that. Now, for those of you interested in how do we do these measurements, there's an article called Testing ROI on the basic library page of the RBCS website. It's at rbcs-us.com, as you see here. And there's also an extensive discussion of the value of testing, both qualitative and quantitative in managing the testing process. The new, especially the new third edition that just came out in July. Here we have another one. Rex, I heard someone describe you as anti-agile. Is that accurate? So absolutely not. This is not at all accurate. Let me be clear about this. I am pro whatever works for our clients, and I am anti anything that doesn't work for our clients. RBCS is about helping clients succeed at their testing and quality goals. We're not about evangelizing for or against any particular life cycle methodologies, and we're not about profiteering from any particular life cycle methodology either, to be blunt about it. So, what we see when Agile is implemented properly with our clients, it has both inherent challenges for testing, as does any other life cycle model, and inherent benefits for testing, as does any other life cycle model. Well, when Agile is implemented improperly, and this is typically things like people picking the parts they like and skipping the parts they don't like, even though the parts they don't like are the ones that enable the parts they like to work, or by people taking good ideas like the idea of not creating excess documentation and taking those to extremes where they don't create any documentation, what was once a good idea becomes a bad idea, then Agile as implemented can create a lot of problems for testing, and this is true for any other life cycle model as well. I mean, I could do a fulsome critique of the V model if we were seeing a lot of people stampeding into doing the V model for the first time, but I think that people know what the limitations of the sequential models are. Now I'll tell you, here's what I am anti about, and this might be what generates some of this buzz, is I am anti-snake oil. I am anti-people making a lot of money pushing methodologies or tools or concepts into organizations using a lot of hype and promises of instant solutions to all problems. That doesn't just happen with Agile. That happens with a lot of things, and I probably don't need to rattle off a list, because many of you, I'm sure, have experienced it. But it is happening with Agile right now, because Agile is peaking on the Gartner hype curve at this point in time. Now, I object to people to take offense when other people like me, though I'm not alone in this, that point out various problems and challenges with Agile, and people who stifle any discussion about solutions to the Agile testing challenges by saying, well, that's not Agile, and people who attack those who raise concerns. There's a saying in the legal profession that applies here. When you have the law on your side, argue the law. When you don't have the law on your side, argue the facts. When you have neither the law nor the facts on your side, attack the prosecutor. And I think, if you hear people attacking me or really anyone else as anti-Agile, I mean, take note that they're choosing not to address, and again, I'll say this, they're choosing not to address the testing challenges that are inherent in the Agile principles and the additional testing challenges that arise when Agile is misapplied. So, people can choose to criticize me or other people who have said things that are somewhat skeptical about Agile as implemented, or they can choose to help me and other people find solutions to these problems. And RBCS does, and will continue to help our clients succeed with Agile, and we have solid recommendations on how to do that. These are pragmatic, proven recommendations. There's no dogma. And we have seen Agile provide benefits for software development and testing as well in Agile world. So it can work. Now I spent a whole webinar on this, which was recorded, and if you missed it, you can go to www.rbcs-us.com on the basic library page and listen to that recorded webinar if you want to hear a discussion on these testing challenges in Agile and some solutions to them. And I'm going to be giving that talk live at the upcoming Software Testing and Performance Conference in Boston. So if you want to attend that conference and you haven't